Man, sweet. Let me remind you of a couple of things, and then we're going to dive right in. Number one, I hope you're marking your calendar, if possible, for July 20th through the 24th. That'll be our first ever vacation Bible school. We're partnering with Northeast Baptist Church right over here across from MacArthur High School. It's about 1.7 miles or so from here, so it's close. But Jennifer can tell you how to get there if you need help. She works there at Mac across the street. But it's going to be a beautiful thing. They're a church that has an older population. They don't have a ton of children. We are a church that doesn't have that problem. We have a ton of children. And so it's going to be beautiful. We'll partner together. They've got just a system that works for them, so we don't have to invent the whole wheel, but they've got facilities and loving, caring, amazing people we're going to run alongside. There is a leaders meeting if you're interested in any form of leadership. So even if you just said, hey, put me down, I'll bring snacks, or I can teach in the classroom, but don't make me in charge, or hey, I'll show up and be a runner, and I'll be a gopher, and I can run kids from station to station to help teachers to corral the kids, or I'm a sports junkie, so put me in rec, and I'll go outside and play with kids. Somebody else can organize it, but I'll be extra hands. Any of those kinds of things. June 22nd, a week from tomorrow, will be a meeting at 7 o'clock over at Northeast Baptist. You can get more information there. There's sign-up sheets on the connection table outside. Angel will be back there afterwards. She was also there this week, can answer any kind of questions you might have about VBS. I was there, my mom was there, Rita was there. So if you're like, hey, what's it going to be like? The website has all the details, the scriptures we're going to study, the theme, all that kind of stuff is all there. So I hope you're marking your calendar. This is a first for us. We've never hosted VBS before, but we're excited about the opportunity, as well as our teenagers are out of school, so it's a great time for them to jump in and lead. Man, get equipped and grab something and let's go to the mission field. Let's just use the mission field right here in our own city. So that's coming up. Secondly, I guess nobody likes to eat as well as I like to eat. I thought this idea of dinners for 6/8 was a pretty good idea. Nobody signed up last week, so we'll try one more week, although there's a bajillion people not here this week, but you guys can make a great dinners for 6, a couple of them. The sheets are out at the table. The way it works is you just sign up on one, and the goal would be 6 adults and then whatever kids come with, and it's going to be 8 people, but each, for June, July, and August, 3 sets of 2 will get together and have dinner once a month. So you guys just figure it out. We give you one another's contact information. Each one hosts once in June, once in July, once in August. So you host one time, and when you host, you invite another couple. So that's how we go from 6 to 8. So we get to have fellowship amongst our community, as well as our community gets to have fellowship with a new couple twice, and then one that you invite along the way. So we kind of get to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It's a great way to invite somebody in your neighborhood, somebody at your work. Hey, you want to come over? We're having some friends for dinner. They're coming over, and so you only host one time. Those sign-up sheets are at the connection table, and we would love to get you guys in some pockets and together to be able to do that. So anyway, that's out there. If that it was a Ken idea, that was a good idea, and it's a y'all idea that's a bad idea, don't sign up. We'll just take them away and try something different. But it was an opportunity. We thought, hey, let's just see if we can start to get some folks together in some pockets, as well as intentionally engaging in our neighborhood and with our friends. So last week, I'm going to jump in because we got a lot to cover, a lot of real estate today. Last week we kicked off this brand new series that Paul is writing to the church at Rome. The church at Rome at this time basically was, the church of Rome was the Roman Catholic Church. But somehow, some Christians from other places had made their way into this incredible city. They began gathering together to worship and to grow and to share their resources and to hold one another accountable and to serve the poor in the area around Rome. And it got back to Paul. And though Paul had never met the people of the church at Rome, God gave him this unbelievable burden for this group of people. And so he sat down and he penned a letter called Romans. And we don't know whether it was strictly intended to be, hey guys, as you build the church in Rome, these are some things you're going to encounter based on what Paul had seen in other places, perhaps as well as what he knew to be true already around the city of Rome and what they might come up against. And so Paul began, we looked at the first half of Romans 1 last week, with basically a simple introduction, right? My name's Paul. I started out as a simple servant of God. And I am a first generation apostle, the word we defined last week, which means one sent by God. He said Jesus himself called me to be an apostle. And so I come delivering you a message, but understand it's not my message, it's God's message. So I'm just the messenger. And he writes in his introduction, he says, the good news of the gospel has changed my life. And this Jesus that I am coming to you to write about is indeed the promised Messiah, the one that God had Old Testament writers all the way back writing, telling us he was coming. This was him. And if you read some of my other letters, you'll find out that I was the chief of all sinners. But it was his gospel, it was his grace that took me from being the chief of all sinners to one who is now following him in a genuine faith. And that genuine faith is leading me into genuine obedience. And so Paul started off, he gave me sort of the history of the gospel, and then he shared with the people there in Rome, hey, by the way, here's why we need the gospel. Because you and I have sinned and junk, and we have jacked up our lives. And we need this grace and mercy that God has. And so we've been diving in the rest of this week to the last half of chapter 1, verses 18 through 32. And as we kind of get dialed in here, let me just throw this out and ask a question. How many of you have done a personality inventory of some sort before? Raise your hand if you've done one of those. I've done several of them through the years, Myers-Briggs, DISC, all those kind of things. But I took one recently. I gathered together with a group of pastors. We're meeting for this kind of coaching and accountability and vision casting called Summit Trek. And we meet once a month. And in our February meeting, we took an assessment for your personality. It was new to me, called a Berkman. And the Berkman, this one really transformed my lens of dealing with stuff in my life, to be honest. It's a 25-page assessment that came back. I mean, the other ones have been great. It's great to know I'm a high D. It's great to know that I'm an ESTJ. I get all of those things. Maybe it's because I'm a little more mature, or I'm at an age now where I genuinely want to know these things about myself. But this one changed something for me. I get this report back. It's 25 pages, and there are different places of leadership and life, each page, and all of them are broken down into 3 sections. Ken at his best, Ken's needs, and Ken at his worst. Right? So I came home and I was all stoked about it. I give it to my wife, and she's looking at it. Yep, that's Ken at his worst. I mean, she's just rolling right on down the road. I mean, it like hits me to a T. I guess because I answered it myself. But here's what I learned in the Berkman. I learned that for years I have been dealing with Ken at his worst. And in the Berkman, I understood that, hey, if I will just back up one layer and try to discover the root problem of what's not being met in Ken's life that's a need that is causing Ken at his worst, I can stop trying to treat the symptom and I can get to the root problem along the way. Now, it doesn't excuse my behavior and the consequences of my behavior when Ken's living from Ken at his worst, but it has radically shifted my thinking. I see something now and I go, okay, that's probably a symptom of a greater problem. What need is not being met? And when we look at this last half of Romans 1, I think if we're not careful, we can get consumed with the symptoms. And Paul lists this huge list of symptoms. One we're going to dive into specifically here in a minute, but what I hope to do is as we look at this, we can actually go up a level and discover what is the greater problem. What is the root problem that's happening in the church and in the life of the people that we're living in Rome, so that we don't find ourselves focusing on the symptom, but we can really see what I hope and think was Paul's root problem that was happening, not only for them, but it's kind of eerie to me how close and how similar it is to how life is in our culture right here in the United States today. So let's dial in. We're in Romans chapter 1. I want to be upfront with you and say this is probably true for the next couple of weeks. Have you ever opened up the Bible and read something and just not particularly enjoyed what you read? It was just kind of hard to swallow. Sometimes the Bible's that way. Sometimes there's stuff there that it just kind of, for me, it just kind of gets right here. And it gets up close and personal. And it's not always easy to grab a hold of. And Paul, right out of the chute, begins to address, really for the next 2 chapters, from 1:18 to 3:18, he sort of deals with this issue of sin in our lives and what that looks like. And we're going to get a full lens of that. But I've wondered before, we don't have to live in the world very long to go, hey, there's something broken here. There's something that just doesn't doesn't seem right. I've longed for the Garden of Eden. And God, what would it be like if just your people, just those that are followers of Jesus, would fall prostrate on our face before a holy God and say, God, my resources are yours, my time is yours, my life is yours, what you're doing in me, let it overflow into the lives of those around us. And if just followers of Jesus would do that, I've wondered, hey, could we inch closer back to paradise in the Garden of Eden? Hey, would 3,000 people a day die of a waterborne disease or a lack of palatable water that they can consume, if all of us as followers of Jesus were just saying, hey God, everything we have is yours. You do as you see fit. By the way, we can solve that problem for $8 billion. And in the United States, we spend $80 billion on Christmas holiday alone. So one-tenth of what we spend on the Christmas holiday would save 3,000 lives a day to have a lack of palatable drinking water. I've wondered, then God, if we were all just following you, just those of us that claim to be followers of Jesus, right? Where 2.6 million children die of a hunger-related disease every year. How does it count adults? That's just straight kids under the age of 18. Would we need as many prisons? Just tons of things that I've gone, God, I long for that paradise, and then I come to the reality that, you know what, once sin entered the world, we got evicted from paradise. We got evicted. We got thrown out and said, okay, fellas, if that's the way you want it, Adam, Eve, in the world that is to come, have at it, go try to figure it out. But catch this, not before we evicted him in our hearts. He created for us a beautiful paradise. Sin came in, and it has robbed us of that. In this entire section from 118 to 318, Paul paints a 2 full chapter section of kind of what this sin looks like. And we're going to dial in to some of it here in Romans in the end of 18 through 32. And the first thing I think I discovered was this. You and I, we have denied the obvious. Right? These are downloaded into the app already. If you want them, you can just download them into the app, or Josh is going to throw them up on the screens. But we've denied just the simple obvious. Look at verse 18 through 20. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all godlessness and the wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness. Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them, for since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power, and his divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. And one of my favorite pieces that I've picked up recently is the 5th word. And go ahead and just leave that right there back at the start, Josh, in verse 18. The 5th word, a little 2-letter word. It's a pretty powerful word there. The word is present tense. Please understand, we're already under the judgment of God. And when we got evicted from paradise in the beauty that was created for us, man, he has given a sentence against sin that has already started. It's just not something that is to come one day. He says the wrath of God is, present tense, being revealed. Rome was this unbelievably impressive place. It was the most powerful city in the world at this time, but you didn't have to be there long to find many of the same things that we struggle with, right? There was filth everywhere. There was decay. There was greed. Right? They were pursuing sex with reckless abandon in their day. It was rampant everywhere. Taxes were high. Blood sport was entertainment. Crucifixes lined the streets with bodies on them. You didn't have to be around long in Rome to go, hey, this is a rough place. And if somehow you could navigate to stay between the lines, you could squeak out an okay living. But if you found yourself ever getting outside the line in their culture, and we discovered quickly, Rome was not a very graceful and forgiving place. I'm guessing some of them probably asked the same question I do. God, what happened to paradise? What happened to the beauty of the Garden of Eden? How do we get back to that? And I think the answer is this. I think Burger King's onto something. God said, what did he say? Have it your way. God said, have it your way. You guys, if that's the way you want it, and over time we've ushered God out of our lives in various little pockets, and where you ushered him and where I've ushered him may not be the same culturally. Where our culture has ushered him versus where other cultures have ushered him may not be the same, but we have ushered him out, and it has left this huge hole in our hearts, and we are endeavoring, if we're not careful, to fill that hole with every form of ungodliness imaginable to man, if we're not careful. Because God said, have it your way. Evil's everywhere. God says, Paul, I need you to go tell them. It's not pleasant news. It's not great news, but it's reality. We've said no to some really obvious truths from God's Word. And we are saying yes to some really foolish things sometimes. And to me, I think this is the root problem. The root problem that he begins to dial into. Guys, we have a culture that is living in disobedience to God's truth. We've suppressed it. And instead we're choosing unrighteousness. And as long as we make that choice, we can battle all the symptoms that we want to. Until we dial in to the root problem and understand it is a spiritual problem, I think we're going to be swimming against the grain and battling uphill. And I don't know if we can ever conquer the hill. And picture yourself being a Roman that receives the letter to start with. Hey bro, who are you? Paul, we don't know you. We've heard of you. But you're telling us that we're not surrendering to God? We've got all the gods covered, dude. Come check it out. Come to the Pantheon, this huge place that they've built, the Taj Mahal, for all their gods. They were polytheistic. They were pluralistic. They had them all covered. Paul says, yeah, there's a huge difference between all the gods and me, God. And you are suppressing the truth of God and choosing unrighteousness. In other words, we are willfully, just willfully choosing sin. So when that happens, you're suppressing the righteousness and choosing unrighteousness. Now, I got to tell you, I don't know that I would have been Paul delivering that message in their culture, but I'm not sure it's received a whole lot better in today's culture. It's hard. It's not a popular message, right? This isn't Stephen Covey's book on how to win friends and influence people that come right out of the chute in chapter 1 and go, hey, let me tell you what you're up against, but it was the truth. And in a world that doesn't like absolute truth, we got to understand there is some truth in this word and the truth in who God is that must be experienced for us to have a relationship with Him. And some truth is indeed fact, it's not relative. And Paul writes to them. And so they ask, you see it there, right? Where do we find it? And he says this. He says, that which was known about God is evident within them, for God made it evident to them. In other words, you know where they find the truth? They find the truth on the tablet of my heart. And on the tablet of your heart. And in your life and in mine. And one of the ways that God reveals His truth to our culture is by overflowing it from you and I, receiving it as truth, living from it, and allowing it to pour into the lives of those around us. And the truth of who He is sort of becomes a moral compass, so to speak. It helps us discern truth and lie. It helps us discern right and wrong. But what's happened, I think, over time for them, and it's happening over time for us, is the light that's on our compass is growing dimmer and dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. It's becoming more and more and more difficult to go, hey, which one of these directions is from Him, and which one of these directions is from culture? Paul actually wrote to 1 Timothy, who was talking to him about some other men. He said they have seared their own conscience as with a branding iron. He says, be careful. In other words, when you brand something, you sear it, it becomes hardened, it becomes calloused. And he says, be careful that our heart doesn't get seared as a branding iron, and all of a sudden we become hardened. We become calloused, and we have suppressed the truth of who He is. That's what happened. Paul says, we support the truth. We've suppressed the truth in unrighteousness. And the only way I know how to say it is, we like sin. We like it. I'll be honest, for most people, the gospel and the good news of Jesus isn't an intellectual barrier problem. being able to have knowledge problem. It's way more a moral problem. It's a problem that something might have to change in my life along the way. And it becomes really challenging. John wrote it this way. He says, this is the judgment. The light has come into this world. The men loved darkness rather than the light, for their deeds were evil. For everyone who does evil hates the light and does not come to light for fear his deeds will be exposed. We love our sin. We think, you know what, if I'm going to live from the truth, it means there might be something in my life that needs to change. It means I might have to surrender the authority of my life over to someone else, the sovereign God. And to be real honest, I kind of like being in charge of my life. Paul says, hey, that's what you're up against. And I would say to you guys, I think that's what we're up against. It's a battle. It's a battle in a culture that is just choosing sin over truth. Just plainly, whatever it is. And then don't miss the last phrase. Throw the last slide up there, Josh. The 18 through 20. The last phrase. The last phrase says what? So that the people are not excused. That's where it gets real personal, doesn't it? But you know, God, I got all these reasons for it to be this way. God says, listen, the truth is not relative. He's revealed his truth. None of us will be without excuse. And so we've sort of denied it. And instead, now you and I, whether we realize it or not, have become God makers. Right? Just like they have. We become God makers. We live in an age and a culture where, man, Burger King says you can have it your way. You walk in, they'll order your burger however you want. You can order tennis shoes now online, however you want. We can custom make everything. Your car, you can go order it online. It will come to the store exactly as you've designed it. Colors, all the different add-ons, all those things. We are a custom culture. And that makes sense in every area except for our journey with God. Right? Because what's happened is, we get here and go, hey God, your truth doesn't work for my system, so I'll just tweak your truth to make it work for me. And we start to make God in our image, instead of us, as the scripture says, being made into his image. Right? Romans 21 through 23 there in verse chapter 1 says, for even though they knew God, they didn't honor him as God or give thanks, but they became futile in their speculations and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools, exchanged the glory of the incorruptible God for the image and the form of a corruptible man, and of birds and of four-footed animals and crawling creatures. Right? We tend to make God into our image. And Paul says, hey, guys, you know better. Yeah, we do it anyway. Hello? Hello? Did you know better? And yet we're choosing foolishness over choosing truth. Right? And we might say, well, Ken, I don't have idols. Well, let me pick a little bit. Because I might argue that I think we have many of the same idols that they do. And maybe we don't bow down to them in the same fashion. But I said it a couple weeks ago, right? When I was talking about golfers, you can have Roy McIlroy or the field. Satan's pretty good. Satan goes, hey, listen, either it's God's way or everything else isn't. So he doesn't have to get us into this world where we're choosing crazy satanic worship to not be worshiping a sovereign God and his truth and righteousness. All he has to do is get us distracted. And I think many, many times we fail to give him the credit for the art of distraction that he's gifted. He's a magician when it comes to distraction, right? These guys, they had their gods. They had statues. They had things built for them, right? The God of beauty, the God of fertility, the God of wealth, the God of war, the God of sex. They had them. And although we might not go build statues to them, but I think we probably have the same ones. Look at how often in our culture we bow down to beauty.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. We bow down to wealth and to money. It becomes this pursuit. Right? The pursuit of sex in our culture is like the ultimate conquer. People are pursuing power, reckless abandon. It doesn't matter who we're running over along the way. And although we might not go out and build our big old statues, and go out at the same time of the day and bow down to him. Paul's words just as applicable for us. Man, it's hard to receive. We have just as many idols and gods as the ancient world does. And so what happens when we start dwelling in our custom-made God? It's God. Let's go. Let's go. He says, okay, have it your way, right? You ever been being held up by someone and you're leaning against them? And then they move out of the way real quickly? Where you're on the other end of a rope? Whether you're playing a tug of war or you're pulling, and then finally the other person just says, done. And we go falling backwards along the way. I think that's the picture that Paul paints. Right? Look how many times he says right here in this next passage, God gave them over. Check this out. Therefore, right out of the chute at 24, God gave them over in the lust of their hearts to impurity, so that their bodies would be dishonored among them. For they exchanged truth of God for a lie, and they worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this reason, there it is again, God gave them over to degrading passions. For their women exchanged natural function for that which is unnatural, and in the same way, also men abandoned the natural function of the woman and burned the desire toward one another, and men with men committing indecent acts and receiving in their own persons the due penalty for their error. And twice here, once in the next section, it says, okay, God handed them over. If that's the way you want it, and immediately their culture and their lives began this downward spiral. Totally away from God's will. Totally away from God's best. God says, listen, you've evicted me. You've built your own gods, so I'm going to let go. We have no idea, you guys, by how sovereign His grace is and how often He actually is doing things around us to keep it from being a whole lot worse than it really is. I believe that. I believe He's at work around us all the time, going, hey, let me orchestrate a few things over here to see if I can keep Ken from falling into quite so big a hole. So let me do with our kids. Don't touch the stove, don't touch the stove, don't touch the stove, don't touch the stove. Sooner or later, you got to turn the stove on low and warm. And you got to let them reach up and touch it. And it scares them a whole lot more than it hurts them. But they go running off, holding their hand, crying and screaming, and you grab the ice bag, hoping that maybe that little bitty experience can save them from a huge disastrous experience of touching the stove when it's hot. And I think God does the same for us in so many ways that we don't even know it. But every once in a while, I think God finally decides, hey, it's time for me to let go of the rope of restraint and allow culture to experience the full consequence of their choices. And I think that's what the Romans are experiencing. And God has let go. He hands them over. And now they get to experience the consequence of their sin. The evidence of what Scripture calls here the degrading passions are evidence that God has let go. You guys understand, we're created to be creatures of passion, right? Passion to live, passion to work, passion to love, passion to play, passion to sing and dance and write and all of those things. We're created by a sovereign God to do those things with passion. They're just supposed to be upgrading passions and not degrading passions. And when we see the evidence of degrading passions, those are places that we know, hey, God has decided, hey, I have to let go. They have formed their own gods. They have evicted me from that area of their lives. So I have to let them go get the full experience of that immorality. Now, let me just say this, right? In most of the ancient rituals, you guys understand sexual immorality was a part of the religious ritual. And that's bonkers for us, but male and female prostitutes were part of the temple staff. Right? I mean, they were all, not staff, but they were around the temple. They were there all the time. Part of their ritual included sexual immorality in their day. In the Library of Celsus, if you go to Ephesus today, it's an incredible library. Right? People have been learning, but underneath it, to this day, to give you a picture, you can still take a tunnel that goes underneath the street and pops out in the brothel across the street. So the guys can say, hey sweetheart, I'm heading down to the library to do some studying. Sexual immorality was everywhere. It was rampant in their culture. And this particular passage of Scripture is one of huge conflict sometimes, because Paul makes a specific notation here of the sin of homosexuality. It's the most comprehensive in all of Scripture as it addresses this one particular sin of homosexuality. Now, why does he dial into this one? Honestly, I can't tell you for sure. What I can tell you is this. I don't think by any stretch that he's trying to vilify this one sin over any other. If we think that this entire thing that Paul is writing to the Romans in chapters 1, 2, and 3 is all about this one sin of sexual immorality, I think we're missing the entire picture. That is a symptom. That is what life looks like, and he knew it would relate to them because it was rampant in their culture as well. So he said, let me paint a picture of what life looks like you apart from God in direct disobedience to suppress his truth. That's one. But understand, in Jesus said a lot about all sexual immorality, about our marriage vows, about adultery, about lust, about pornography. Paul is dialing into one here because it painted for them a picture of what it looks like to walk apart from God. Men, as Christians, can I plead with us and say, hey, let's not get on a holy pedestal and elevate that one sin above all the others. Let's include all of them in the process. In fact, if we're humble enough to read the list that he gives, my guess is we probably find ourselves somewhere in this list for every single one of us. Look at what he says. He covers all kinds of sin in 28 through 32. And just that they did not see fit to acknowledge God any longer, there he is again. God gave them over to a depraved mind, to do those things which are not proper, being filled with unrighteousness, wicked greed, evil, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, malice. They're gossipers, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, arrogant, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents. Have we covered anybody yet? Or am I the only one that's been on the list? Right? And he keeps rolling. Right? Without understanding, untrustworthy, unloving, unmerciful. And although they know the ordinance of God, that those that practice such things are worthy of death, they do not only do the same, but also give hearty approval to those who practice them. Man, absolutely he dials in. This is what it looks like apart from me. But man, he gives a pretty thorough list. Because we find ourselves evicting him from different places in my life and yours. But those are symptoms of a greater problem of you and I suppressing the truth of what we know is here. It results, he says, in a depraved mind. The Greek word for that means to decay. Sort of like rust on metal. It just begins to decay if we're not careful. Our hearts want what's wrong. God lets go. Our minds begin to give it over to foolish, decaying things, a mind of depravity. And it starts to spiral downward. Paul's trying to help them understand. And yet it's hard. It was hard for them. It's hard for us. We live in this culture that says, right, if it feels good to you, do it. If it looks good to you, just do it. We live in this culture right now that sort of just doesn't like any sort of absolute truths. And when we let God go out of our lives, we enter into this downward spiral. And guys, there's just some things in these 66 books that weren't meant to be modified. They're truth.
Amen.
As they are.
Amen.
If we go back through the whole section, here's the three things, right? Our hearts, in many ways, have been given over to impurities. We've evicted them in our heart. Right? Our bodies have been given over to things that are degrading passions. And our minds have been given over to foolish things that ultimately decay. It's because we chose to no longer acknowledge Him, to remove God from from our own personal knowledge system. And every time I see that, I also think too about how we've tried to remove him from the knowledge system in our culture. Even in schools, in our public school system, we tried to remove him from the knowledge system that's there. And I get it, some people say, yeah, you can't even pray at school. And honestly, there's a piece of me that kind of gets that. And I really do. I kind of get that, because if you let one God in, you have to let all the gods in. And by the way, if our country was predominantly Muslim, I don't know that I want anyone telling my child they need to bow down and pray to Allah or anybody but Jesus. So part of me gets that. And can I just say, I think that's a symptom anyway, back to the very beginning, of a greater problem. I don't think the answer is a 2 to 3 minute prayer. I can pray with my girls before they leave the house. They can pray when they get there. I think the bigger thing is hey, how do we get educators and those governing educators to bring God back into the knowledge system? We're asking them in this country to teach every discipline there is to teach without any reference to God at all. We need to pray for a generation of educators that will rise up in boldness. And I get it, and we do, by the way, have some amazing educators in this church that truly believe they are just as called to ministry as me and Rita and many, many, many of you. You are the hands and feet of Jesus, and I am grateful to get the prayer requests and to get the testimonies of how God's using you. But man, for our culture as a whole, I don't think it's, hey, we need 2 or 3 minute prayers. I think we need to get the discussion of God back into the classroom, and we need to pray for a generation of boldness that says, hey, you know what? I'm going in, and we're going to bring him into the equation. With every single subject that we teach, we're going to have a discussion about who God is. My girls, I love them, but never once has their faith been tested because they couldn't have a 2 minute prayer at school. But their faith has been tested often by a teacher who very boldly and intentionally tried to challenge their faith in the classroom. And in fact, many times doing their best to dissolve it completely along the way. And man, if we think it's 2 or 3 minutes of prayer, I think that's the symptom. Man, I can pray with them, and they can go, and a teacher gets them all day. I want to pray for God to rise up a generation of teachers that just says, you know what, I might lose my job. But we're going to bring God back into the discussion. I pray our nation would get to a place that we say, hey, we are a nation that is under God, and there's no way to educate every 1st through 12th grader, kindergarten through 12th grader, preschool, college, Adam, all of however you want to get there. And go, there's no way to educate them and not be a nation founded under God and talk about God in the classroom. So his word relates to every one of those things. And let's not get caught up pursuing the symptoms. Let's go to the need that's not being met. President Obama recently was quoting JFK with regards to the economic challenge. And this is what he said. This is what JFK said. Our problems are man-made. Therefore, they may be solved by man. No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings. Can I just tell you? I hear that. That just screams. I think not only is the problem of humanity that we have evicted God in so many places of our life, but the greater problem might be we think we can get out of it all on our own apart from Him. Because I am praying that we will invite Him back in. We will acknowledge God. We are in over our heads. Does our world not look like Romans 1 today? And until we say to Him, God, your sovereign grace and mercy to do something in me and then to begin to create revival in your culture here is the only chance we have. And I think until we get there, we live in Romans 1. And we're swimming upstream, trying to get there. And fighting, and fighting, and fighting. And God, I pray that you bring us to that place of brokenness personally, brokenness as a church, and brokenness as a culture. To say, God, I don't want to suppress the truth any longer. I don't care what it has to change in my life. I'm ready. I need you. I don't want to build an idol of another job or another car or another golf club or another something. I want to surrender fully to you. And we'll tell you in Romans chapter 3, I'll give you a sneak peek. We get the good news. It's coming. We get the good news, Paul uses some really, really, really big church words in Romans chapter 3, where he starts talking about things like justification and sanctification and glorification. And he says there is a day coming, right, that our sins can be forgiven. He also talks about that we can be free from sin. Not just forgiven, not just justified, but we can be sanctified, set free. We don't have to live under bondage of that anymore. And then glorification, one day, that promised Messiah is coming again. To take all those who know him to a place of glory for all eternity. He says it's coming. It's coming. But until that time, when we take a look in the mirror and say, God, is the problem in here, or is the problem out there? When I start right here. C.S. Lewis said this. He said there's only two kinds of people in the end. Those who say to God, thy will be done. And those to whom God says, thy will be done. My prayer, please not let go of us. That he would wrap his hands so tightly to the rope that we would hang on for dear life, and we would look in the mirror today and say, Holy Sovereign God. Just as Paul said, I am chief of all sinners. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for the places that I have fallen short, for the idols that I have built, whatever yours are. I got a closet full of them in the door on the right, on the bottom. You can't open the door. So my tennis shoes can open. You go see a tennis shoes anonymous class or something. What are yours? What are the things standing in the way of complete surrender? We're not building statues to it, but when it comes down to wholly giving our lives to this versus that, turn in that direction. Let's pray today and say, God, we're done with that. Lord, we love you so much. And I thank you for this powerful picture from your servant Paul, who wrote this letter to Christians, not only in Rome, but for all eternity. God, we've no doubt been evicted. We've no doubt evicted you, God, in so many places, in so many ways in our lives. God, as our culture just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse, we've built all kinds of false gods and idols. God, would you help us recognize? Recognize, Father, when we choose to walk outside of your will and your plan and your truth, when we are taking truth that we know and suppressing it for righteousness, for unrighteousness. God, the solution to so many of our problems in this culture, in our flesh, and the problem is we're walking apart from you. God, would you just remind us that you are our only hope. God, what you do in us, around us, through us. God, we often try to address these things and we point to symptoms. And this is happening over here. Maybe we should go look into that. But God, would you just go straight to the core of our hearts and say, hey, I have sent my truth to the world that needs me, and I've written it on the tablet of your heart, Ken. So just give me your heart. Precious and holy name, pray. And there's some pretty rich stuff here that's really been rocking my world. I am amazed at how similar 2015 United States of America lines up with stuff that was written so long ago. This is truth. It's all we have in these 66 books, cover to cover. And then my prayer for me, for our home, for our church, and ultimately for our city and the uttermost parts, is that we would get back to really, really, really drawing him in. And just saying, God, you're invited. You're no longer evicted. Saying, God, we'll move anywhere you want in the city. How many people do you guys know that moved to San Antonio and intentionally go move into the south side of San Antonio and they could live wherever they want? I don't know very many people. Most people, they can live anywhere they want, don't want to live in the South Side. It's totally different to go say, hey, we're moving into the South Side so we can go knock on every door in our neighborhood and invite every single person in our neighborhood over for dinner. And we can go begin to be that couple in the neighborhood, that everybody knows the doors are unlocked and you're welcome. And that's Him working in our lives. And by the way, there's one of those couples sitting in this room. That could be our story. I don't know what yours is. It may not be that story. But I pray that we just say, God, we invite you in. Have your way with us. And man, let's trust Him with the results of that and see what He does in the coming days and weeks and months. Next week, I will tell you, we're going to take a little sabbatical from Romans just for a week because George is doing Romans chapter 2 on the 28th, and I wrapped up Romans chapter 1. So we're just going to celebrate dads and dudes next week. We celebrated mothers and others on Mother's Day. We'll celebrate dads and dudes, and I'll do a Father's Day message next week, and then we will dial right back into Romans chapter 2 on the 28th as George has been preparing as he's been on the road to get ready to dial back in. So really, really good stuff. I would encourage you to keep reading. Read all the way through chapter 3. You know, Logan and I were talking as they were driving on the deal. I was like, man, I gotta keep reading, and you feel like you just get punched in the nose all the time. You know, I said, hey, the good news is coming. We just gotta get to chapter 3. And part of it is just the process of working our way through. We got to acknowledge where we are. It's that doctor's appointment, you know, and they say, hey, this is the problem. That's part of it. That leads to the road of recovery, and the good news is coming. So if you find yourself going, man, I keep trying to read it, skip to chapter 3, read chapter 3, and then go back and do it again, because we'll know that, man, the good news and grace and mercy of the gospel is coming along the way. So I'll be down front. Would love to say hello. Otherwise, if this is your first Sunday with us, there's a blue bag for you out on the connection table. Sign up for dinners for 6/8 on the connection table if you're interested in getting together with some couples. Have a blessed week, and we will see you later.